All right, and welcome to another episode of Retail Talk, a show where I interview retail's movers and shakers, thought leaders, and folks from really interesting companies, organizations about the cool things they're doing in retail. Today, I have Ryan with me, the Chief Revenue Officer of InReality. Ryan, do you want to do a full intro?
Sure. Thanks, Dimitri. As you mentioned, my name's Ryan Cahoy with InReality. I've been around digital signage for going on about 25 years now. I started my career on the LED display hardware side with Daktronics. Spent about 20 years on the digital signage CMS side with Rise Vision. And then today, I'm, as you mentioned, the Chief Revenue Officer at InReality, where I'm really focused on sensors to help profile traffic, especially in retail applications, where they can use data to make actual decisions. So, think of it as little sensors that help map traffic and engagement and dwell time around specific areas of the store.
Now, Ryan, when I saw your solution, what really jumped out at me is almost an analogy of what we've been doing in retail since the beginning of retail, and what we failed to do rather, and what we achieved in e-commerce in like 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So within a span of 5 years from very simple e-commerce sites, we got to a point where we knew everything about our sites. We knew about how much you spent, what item you looked at, your dwell time. We did A/B testing, but this other medium that was a millennia old retail store, we still only knew who came in and who came out.
Yep.
Right. So tell me about this analogy and how does your solution help bridge that digital divide between the two mediums?
Oh yeah, it's a huge gap between websites and physical stores. I mean, you nailed it. Like websites give you a wealth of information about behavior. But in a lot of cases, when you look at bricks and mortar locations, they know how many people walked in the door and they know the point of sale data and they know nothing in between. Unfortunately, stores are like black holes in that sense. The thing that's been interesting about the pandemic is I think it really woke retailers up about how much data is available on their websites. And it's now got them yearning for that same type of insights in the store. So, where we come in, the technology is really advanced. There's a lot of different kinds of sensors that are out there. They become more economical. And we hope this new kind of emphasis on it will get them to start to look at, hey, we need to collect this information so we can make data-driven decisions inside the store, just like we're doing on our websites.
Now, preparing for this, I kind of wanted to see how long we've known each other. And I think it's been over 20 years at this point. And tell me, ever since began digital signage, there's been a little bit of use of cameras to do some heat mapping in the store as maybe a side use case. How does your solution differ from these kind of heat map solutions that are, may have been around digital signage world for quite some time? What do you do better? Is it the same thing but better? Is it revolutionary? Tell me about the differences.
I think it's similar. There's just a lot of different ways you can collect data. So we're more agnostic when it comes to the type of sensor that you can use. The best bang for the buck is trying to figure out how to collect things like traffic, impressions, engagement, and dwell time, because those match up pretty well to what people are used to on their website. It can be done from the cameras. It could be the security camera. It could be a local camera on the shelf, but it could be proximity sensors or other things as well. So I think it really comes down to, backing up a step with that retailer and saying, what is it you want to achieve? And then what's the easiest, least intrusive way to collect that information?
Now, that brings up a good point. What are you trying to achieve, with this type of solution? And to me, it comes a question of, is there such thing as too much data? And what are the best practices about, deploying your type of solution in the store and maybe ramping up with your information? What would you recommend to a retailer looking to deploy your solution or understand more about what's happening in the store environment, physical store environment?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely have too much data. I think it's really important to ask why, at every data point that they want to collect. We've all run into the technical person that starts off with, wouldn't it be interesting if we collected? And that to me is always a red flag of, well, this is just going to be an experiment. Is it going to really yield any important data? And if you're doing a lot of that stuff and you're collecting just mountains and mountains of data, it's easy to get lost because then, how do I analyze it? Where do I start? It just becomes too much noise. So again, it really comes back to what's the most important thing. And it may not be mapping the entire store. You can do that, but maybe it's more important to just understand the bakery or the checkout aisles or wherever there's a problem area or there's an area that's a high margin product. That's where I'll use the term area of interest. If we use sensors just in that area, collect very focused data and just measure that one thing, then once you've figured out the formula, it's easy to repeat into other areas of the store. It's that, crawl, walk, run type of analogy.
Right. What's the most important or most common KPI that your customers are looking for when they deploy your solution?
What's funny is traffic. As basic as it sounds, there's a lot of people, again, thinking holistically, like they probably have a door counter. So, they know how many people came in, but how many people in the store went to this specific end cap or this specific area? And in a lot of cases, they don't know. So just as simple as getting how much traffic was in an area is really valuable. And then the next step beyond that is when the traffic's there, how many of them looked at my way or how many of them were engaged so that I know, if I've got an end cap and I wanted to do A/B testing, if I have a blue one and a red one, if I can measure the traffic that goes by it and how many people looked at it and I engaged, that can maybe help me decide what color is best for my end cap.
Interesting. I guess in terms of deploying a solution such as yours, you mentioned you can use some off-the-shelf equipment. Tell me about the architecture. What are the components? What's required? And how do they talk to each other?
It could be as simple as taking something like an edge device and plugging it into the security cameras in the existing infrastructure. That's quick and easy. All the pieces are pretty much there if you can get access. Beyond that, it could be as simple as off-the-shelf Logitech type cameras that could be put at a shelf level inside different areas of a store. Think pinhole cameras. And I do think it's important to note, we talk a lot about cameras, but there's always that sensitivity around it. The data, when you're collecting data from a camera, it is all processed on the edge in the store. Nothing's recorded. It's just analyzed to pick up data points. So it's not doing anything that's personally identifiable to consumers. But there are a lot of retailers that are going to be sensitive or hesitant around just the word camera. So that's where you look at other sensor types like Wi-Fi sensors, radar, LiDAR. Again, it all comes back to what's that KPI? What is it the client wants to collect? And then working backwards from there. But it isn't as complicated as people may think. It's really just a sensor, positioning it. And then there's some kind of media player, edge device, computer that's collecting that data and moving it to the cloud where you can analyze it, run reports, do different things.
So the one piece that I picked up is, off-the-shelf equipment. So essentially, I would imagine that you're hard pressed to find a chain or tier 1, 2, 3 retailer without, security cameras in their store today. So you can essentially take an edge device like an HP, MP9, and connect that to that exact camera infrastructure, thereby not actually bringing any other devices in the environment. Is that correct?
Correct. As long as the cameras support an RTSP, which is an industry standard for streaming. If you get into the old black and white closed circuit TV, okay, we got challenges there. But if they're current cameras that are IP based and they support that RTSP stream, yeah, it's all common open systems these days.
Got it. Well, this sounded very interesting. I'm looking forward to actually seeing a real life demo of the solution as well. But one question I'm asking all of my guests these days is give me your prediction for the next 12 to 18 months in the retail space. What do you see as bubbling up as hot technology trends, or what do you expect from retail in the next year to year and a half?
I'm probably really biased, but I think it's really going to come down to the importance on collecting data and using that data. We talked about the pandemic pushing everybody into using online tools. And now that they've got a taste for how they can use that data, I think it's going to be front and center in the next year to 18 months as they come back to the bricks and mortar going, how do we better use this space? And I think it's going to come down to, if I'm going to go request marketing funding, they're going to ask me, how are you measuring if that money is going to move the needle? And I need an ironclad way to prove that it's working. Otherwise, they're not going to give me funding. They're just going to funnel more into pay for clicks or whatever on the website. So I think it's the use of data is going to be a big thing in the coming year.
Got it. So data-driven decisions, driven by information coming out of the store. I love it. Ryan, thank you very much for taking time to join me on the show. I appreciate your time. Hope the viewers got to learn a little bit more about a new and unique solution. And until next time, take care.